Good to have a full house.
We need a chair.
We might have a couple more people still trickling in, but I think we'll go ahead and get started because there's a lot to get through today. Excited to be here. My name's Audit Nochur. I'm a project manager with WalkBoston. I'm joined by my colleague Dorthea Haas, and we work for more walkable communities all over Massachusetts. So we're not just Boston. We've been working in Fall River for a number of years now, and I think the way this walk audit came about and why we're all here today is I was down here with Erin a couple months ago, and we were surveying folks about some of the wayfinding signs we've installed, pointing folks towards the Quequechan River Rail Trail, which is such an amazing asset you all have down here, and other destinations around the community. And so we were standing out at the corner of Pulaski and Warren, right by the park, and we were surveying folks as they were coming and going to and from school, and and Eric noticed that there's some issues with the traffic and high speeds, which I'm sure a lot of you are well aware of and thinking about all day. So we kind of wanted to respond to that need, and so that's why we're here today for the walk audit. And so I think this is a run through of what we'll do today. We want to hear who all of you are. Great to see some new faces who we haven't worked with before, and we're excited to work with all of you in this effort. And then we'll have I'll run through this presentation about some of the basics of walking infrastructure, some of the things that we want to look at while we're out there today when we talk about the kinds of improvements we can make that are going to make it a safer place for students to walk. Then we'll actually do the walk, and you all have the clipboards and maps. You can take notes on those as we're out there walking. And then we'll come back here and discuss what we observed and start coming to a consensus around what kinds of improvements we actually want to see. And coming out of that, we'll take all those notes, we'll write up a report or a memo that all of you can then, here in the community, can then use to make those kinds of changes on the ground that are going to make it safe. Does that sound good to folks? Sure. All right, well, so I think we'll hold off for maybe a few quick questions at the end, just so we can get through this in a timely fashion. Do this pretty quickly, but some basic aspects of walkability. You want to think about connections. You also want to think about destinations, where you're going, in this case, the school. And we want to think about safety and comfort. So speaking to each of these quickly in turn, we want to think about how streets and sidewalks balance all the different ways folks are getting around, whether you're walking, whether you're biking, driving, whether you're taking transit. I know there's an SRTA bus route that goes up Lapham. So how can we make sure that the streets are working for everybody and that paths, crosswalks, signals are where they need to be? And then thinking about variety, having destinations that you're going to, in this case, the school. You hear a lot about mixed-use development these days. I know probably Fall River's looking at that in different areas. And then about safety and connectivity, making sure that crossings are safe, that they're well marked, that they're visible to drivers, that they're visible to people walking. So there's a number of different measures with respect to that, which I'll go into more detail about. And then a lot of it is also the basics around maintenance, making sure that building fronts are cared for, making sure that snow shoveling, trash collection is taken care of. So the elements that make for a walking environment that's not just safe, but also comfortable. It feels like it's a place that you actually want to walk. And then you can think about how you sort of activate underutilized street space. So this might not be as relevant for what we might be doing today, but as far as encouraging vibrancy in a community and walkability, again, important things to think about more broadly. And so a walk audit. This is Dorthea in action with a group of folks in Holyoke out in Western Mass. I think, is that the planning director on the right of you in that photo?
Yes, that is.
So we work with, so this is exactly what we do. We get together with folks like you, local residents, elected officials, state agency partners to go around, walk around the community, take a look at what's happening, and talk about what we can actually work to change together. So that's precisely what we're going to do today with the walk audit. And so this is the route we'll walk. You all have the clipboards with the map. So we'll walk up Lapham, up to Warren, do a loop down Jackson to Brayton, and come back to the school. And I think that'll give us a good sense of what's happening in the immediate school vicinity, but also Warren and Brayton as high traffic streets in the area where probably a lot of people coming and going to and from the school. Those are the streets they're taking. So we'll want to look at what kinds of improvements we can make there as well. And then this is from what Erin has been pulling together from this Safe Routes to School program. You can see that there's a large concentration of students that live within half a mile to a mile of the Greene School, but I think only 20% of those students are walking to school.
Yeah,
from
so
that report?
75% live within a mile. And in the morning, it's 19% that are walking and 23% in the afternoon. And within a half mile.
Actually, I have another piece of information that the secretary offered me today.
Yeah.
We have a list of those who walk home. How many of you are going to count?
Oh, okay.
So the kids have to sign up if they're
Yeah.
walkers.
Okay.
So, because I know we only got about 200 responses.
Yeah,
so
out
close
of
to
800.
people.
So we had a
So these are
27.
students, all these yellow dots?
All
Yeah,
those
so
yellow
students-
dots
that's
are
their
students.
residents.
So I
Okay,
blew that up so we could see a little bit more, but there are just so many and it's so dense that it's hard to see streets. But there are a lot of kids that even though this is a massive school with 800 kids, there's still 75% of them that live within a mile of the school. So, and even within, if you look at the last page before the map, within a half mile, it's expected that like 60% of the kids will walk to school, and right now only 31%. So there's a lot of encouragement type work we could try to do once we figure out the infrastructure, low-hanging fruit that hopefully could boost that number a little more.
Right, and I think, and I don't know to what extent the survey got into this, but if there are students who live within the walk shed of the school who could walk or would be interested in walking, but they aren't walking because it doesn't feel safe, that's exactly what we want to take a look at today.
And it was, so I just entered the data this morning, and there were a good number that were walking because they didn't have a car.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't walking because they were choosing to, but there were a good number that were walking because they didn't have a car, and even though they had one car. So
Are they walking by themselves?
so it didn't ask like, are you walking by? But a lot that were walking were like, there were some second graders, there were some fourth and fifth graders that were walking. So second grade, I hope that they're walking with either older siblings or parents still, because second grade is a bit too young to be walking by themselves.
So I did just go do a quick check of how many we have signed up for walkers. So those would be kids who walk home without a parent. We have 34, but I'm thinking people who surveyed those, if we have parents who don't have cars, they're going to be including those people who walk even though they're walking home with their parent.
Yeah. So.
Either that or we have a lot more kids who are walking that never filled out the permission slip, which shouldn't be the case.
But I think these numbers suggest that there is room for growth in the number of students who could walk to school.
And
so.
it really highlights the traffic problems too.
Sure.
When 68% are driving.
Yeah, even when they live that close. So that's exactly what we'll dig in on today.
And in Fall River, you have to be further than 2 miles to get a bus. There's no option to take a bus close.
I think it's within 1 mile.
Yeah, it's
It's within one?
I think at the middle school it's a little longer, maybe 1.5 at the middle school level, that type of thing. And like you said, he was saying before the high school takes the public
Okay, so maybe they
transportation.
changed.
Yeah,
I don't know,
it's
I had
not
a
2
parent
miles.
like
That I know for a
complain to
fact.
me. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't control that.
Sometimes they may think they live 2
Yeah.
miles away,
Yeah,
and a lot of times they really living less than a mile. It
Yeah.
just seems really far to
seems
them.
far.
Well, and I think also, if they're young children, you gotta look at the neighborhood you live in. So
Yeah.
there could be a lot of parents that these children could walk if there was some kind of a safety way that they could walk to school. But if you have 2 little ones and there's no one gonna walk them, you're gonna throw them in the car and you're gonna bring them to school. I think that's a big issue as well.
Or somebody else, like a grandparent, is going to pick them up and bring them to their
Correct.
home. There's a lot of that
Yeah.
goes on in the
Oh,
city.
yeah, absolutely.
So like the students having a guardian who could come with them, that's sometimes an issue.
Also, Plymouth Avenue is a major street for anyone to cross.
Correct,
Much
correct.
less a child.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's all factors that parents look into, and I think that's one of the reasons why Greene School, I'd say out of all the schools, and you're right, every single one of them has issue with this, but I think Greene is kind of like the worst one because of the location of it.
So some things for us to keep in mind, some broader concepts as we're out there is that neighborhood design has a big effect on walkability. This might apply more in the case of a new development, but you can see these 2 examples from suburban Seattle where you have a regular street grid on the left and sort of a more suburban cul-de-sac pattern on the right. The blue shows the destinations you can walk to within a mile. So you can see that how the streets are laid out really impacts, how far where you can get around in your community. So that's just a principle to think about. Also thinking about how road design affects walkability. This is from some pedestrian safety work we did in Northampton in the downtown. We have 5 streets coming together. You have a crossing light with no crosswalk, but people just cross there anyway because that's the quickest way to get from point A to point B. So this is the kind of problem that we want to dig in and tackle to make sure that it's actually safe where people want to walk and what's logical and makes sense. And then there's a lot around traffic speed, and I think we've already heard it. Slowing cars down is critical, especially when you're talking about young children who are some of the most vulnerable road users out there. And this really brings into focus if you're hit by a car going 20 miles an hour, you have a 90% chance in survival. You double that speed to 40 miles an hour, and the numbers are totally flipped. 9 in 10 chance of a fatality. So one thing I did notice when we were scouting out here is the speed limit posted on Warren is 30 miles an hour, which is the default statewide prevailing speed limit. Recent state legislation signed by the governor that we've been advocating for years now gives local communities the option to opt into a 25 mile per hour speed limit and can further set 20 mile per hour slow zones. I think there's a 20 mile an hour sort of right around the school, but maybe you could think about how you expand that and how speeds could be regulated. So that's something we can talk about.
I think they go a lot faster than 30 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
But they-
I looked into that, and we really can't put the 25 up yet, because it has not gone through MassDOT yet. So I guess, even though the governor signed it, and we all got this wonderful thing in November, I got excited, because I have a lot of areas that I would love to. And when I called MassDOT, they told me, hold off on it, because it hasn't reached the manual traffic laws yet. So they're like, even though it's approved by the governor, but MassDOT hasn't really put their stamp on it as well.
When was that?
This was a couple of weeks ago. So what
Oh,
she told me, what I would have to do is if I made certain streets 25 mile per hour, at entrance to the city, I would have to put that in the city of Fall River. There are some streets that are 25 and and of course I'd have to speak to the chief of police to make sure that would be okay with them as well. But entrance to the city, that all would have to be posted.
That's what Boston is.
Because you know what I was told? Boston can do whatever they want.
Wow.
Yeah, there's 12 communities, I think, statewide that have
Boston
opted
is in
in.
their own little,
I've heard that
honestly.
multiple times, actually.
Yeah. Well, let's come back to that. because,
Yeah, so
a lot of roads in Boston.
that would be great if we could, because I've already spoken to the chief about that, because I have a list of streets that we could already make them 25, but I was told, well, I got a little too excited too fast.
What's coming through?
That the uniform,
Oh, the
the
guidance.
NUTCD, I think the
Yeah.
update is coming soon.
I
Jackie
hope so.
DeWolf, the new Sustainable Mobility Director.
Yeah, they're redoing
mentioned it
sessions,
the
they're
other
doing
day.
training on it already on updates.
Yeah, so shouldn't have to wait too long.
Okay, this is all good knowledge to have. But regardless of officially changing speed limits, there's a number of things that we can do to design streets, re-engineer streets in a way that slow traffic down. And so you can see all of them summarized over here. So I'll go through each of these in turn. And so I think while we're out there today, we want to think about also what can we do quickly and cheaply, because we all know that there's a real need for this stuff, and there's only so much resources to go around. So what can we really do to make a difference in a tangible way? So I'll go through each of these in turn. So narrowing lane widths, the wider the travel lane, the faster traffic goes. I think pretty simple concept. And so ideally lanes should be no wider than 10 feet. And you can narrow a travel lane. It can be as simple as putting a fog line of paint down on the street, and you can see that makes a substantial difference in speed. If you wanted to build out the curb, that's something that's going to take more money, more resource intensive. So it can look like different things in different contexts, but as simple as putting down paint or plastic posts can make a huge difference. Dorthea, do you have something you want to
No, I
add
was
here?
just going to point out the yellow line.
Yeah.
That is the painted line that visually reduces the road.
Yeah, so that's one example.
And it affects drivers, just the painted line.
Yes, just
Yeah.
it does.
Yes.
Because that it's sort of that visual narrowing of the
Yeah,
street. They're
yeah.
going to feel compelled to go slower. Curb extensions, so or bump outs, you often hear these called. So these can look like a number of different things. You could do it with for physically extending the curb. You can paint out an area, add green space to it, and these have a number of advantages. Shortens crossing distances, which if you're a young child or a senior makes a huge difference. It also makes people walking and people driving more visible to each other. You can kind of step out. You have that protected area, because often, who was it who mentioned the cars park in the crosswalks? That's a huge issue. So I think we'll definitely want to think about how you can restrict parking near some of those crosswalks or maybe bump them out so folks can see each other. They also provide informal gathering areas, public spaces, and also by, again, serving to narrow the street that slows traffic down. So we can think about the opportunities with those. Crosswalks, the two parallel lines is standard, but that zebra striping, that perpendicular striping, makes a huge difference in terms of visibility, or the ladder design, you might hear it called. And making sure it's regularly repainted is really important. And while we're out there today, we'll definitely see some faded crosswalks that could definitely use some improvement.
And that's more effective than the red one?
I think, the brick, those high visibility designs are better than just the two
The two
parallel
white
lines,
lines,
but then
yeah.
again, how you might maintain that might be a little more challenging
Yeah,
compared
okay,
to
yeah.
just painting it.
The ladder is more uniform, and that's what's in the MUTCD, so it's more known. Whereas the solid,
Yeah.
the solid is less desirable. It's not standard.
Yeah, and it
So-
also might be harder to put in if you're talking
And
about
to
like a brick
maintain,
pattern.
And
it can be
Doesn't
slippery
provide-
depending on the surface you
Doesn't
use.
provide enough visual contrast, I feel like.
Uh-huh.
I think all the cities and towns are going with, I call them piano keys.
Yeah, piano,
Um,
yeah, that's
And we
another-
started doing them about 2 years ago, we're not even halfway, we're not even halfway done.
That you've
We-
changed, I'm excited.
And then
to hear.
any contract that's going on, like, I met with JR regarding the Ferreira school, and I asked for all of those crosswalks to be the
Okay.
ladder, and
Great.
it's very visible at nighttime.
Mhm.
It's unbelievable.
Does it shine at night? Does
Yes.
it reflect the headlights?
Yes, there's
Yeah.
a reflection, like, it's really a crushed windshield.
Oh.
And they're crushed, and they go, once the paint is laid down, that material goes on top of the paint,
Oh.
and at nighttime it reflects it.
Uh-huh.
And also thinking about ways to make crosswalks safer. So you can think about speed tables, like on the left where you have the road raises slightly going up to the crosswalk, that levels up and goes back down. So that again forces traffic to slow down. And also by giving pedestrians that extra elevation, again, makes folks more visible to each other, folks walking and driving. You can see the signage on the left. On the right, we really like these in-street pedestrian crossing signs, which you often see at unsignalized crossings or mid-block crossings. Those make a huge difference in terms of getting drivers to notice the crosswalk and slow down, and also having something in the street that makes them slow down. So thinking about how crosswalks can be more visible and safer is critical. Parking is also interesting to think about, and there's a parking crunch in this neighborhood, and us being WalkBoston, we want people to get out of their cars. We don't want to see parking everywhere. But when you deploy parking strategically, it actually can help the walking environment. Again, it functions to narrow the street, so it slows traffic down. It also creates physical separation between the street and the sidewalk. So, if you're walking on the sidewalk and there's parking next to it, you're not as exposed to traffic. So it can make a difference in terms of how folks feel safe. So that's really about slowing traffic down. Other aspects around safety and comfort, pedestrian countdown signals, continuous sidewalks, curb cuts, again, separation from the curb, and thinking about comfort with trees and benches. So again, we'll go through each of these quickly in turn. Countdown signals, I don't know that there are any signals in the immediate vicinity of the school, but I think if you think about maybe some of the surrounding areas where you have signalized crossings, having the countdown makes a huge difference. So knowing how much time there is to cross the street, making sure there's sufficient time to cross the street. How are the signals timed with traffic so that people can walk into the crosswalk before the light turns green, so that way if the car is turning right, people are already in the crosswalk and they know to wait. So there's a lot that can be done with signals to make it safer for folks walking. And so we can talk more about that in the discussion if there are locations where we want to look at signals. Making sure sidewalks are continuous. And you wouldn't have a utility box in the middle of Warren Street or Brayton Ave, so why is it acceptable to put one in the middle of the sidewalk? I think one challenge here that I've noticed is I think some of the streets around here, like Jackson, which we'll walk, you don't even have sidewalks in some of the areas. So how does that impact the walking environment here? Is there scope to put in some sidewalks on these streets where students might want to walk? That'll be interesting to look at. Curb cuts and curb radii, I don't think you have them in the immediate vicinity here, but thinking about how do you restrict access to driveways so that cars aren't just whipping around the corner and turning in. You can see on the left that's sort of a very wide open and exposed if you're a pedestrian walking across that parking lot entrance, whereas on the right it's a lot more tightly controlled. Cars are going to have to slow down to come in there. So how can that streetscape contribute to the safety of the walking environment. Making sure paths are clearly delineated, with striping, different types of materials, whether you're crossing a driveway or a parking lot. Again, something to look at. And then again, you can see minimizing curb cuts on the left. That's a very chopped up walking environment versus the more you can minimize those entry and exit points where cars are going to be turning across the walking paths, the better off you are. And really conveying that the sidewalks are the pedestrian zone. Again, same idea here. How do you visually delineate that this is space where walkers are supposed to be when they're crossing an area where people driving are going? And then tightening up curb radii. This is important as well. If a turning radius is very wide, a car can just whip around that at a high speed without slowing down. So how can you tighten it up so that it almost has to be a 90-degree turn that really forces traffic to slow down? And again, you can see on the left how you can do it sort of near term on the cheek with paint and posts that create that visual tightening. On the right, you can see how it actually has built out the curb and incorporated some greening elements. You can actually see where the old curb was and then where they've extended it out to. I think that's in Woburn, Massachusetts. So again, it shows how you can do these things. It looks different in different contexts, but there's you can think about various ways to do it and accomplish the same goal. Again, separation between the walkway and moving traffic, parking or a pavement change can achieve this. Like you see on the left, there's that little brick strip, and then you have the sidewalk. On the right, with vegetation, that grassy tree-lined area, often called a verge. Again, making sure that people walking, people driving have their own space, and that it feels safe. And again, the aspects that contribute to the vibrancy of a walking environment and the basics, having trees, having benches, trash receptacles. So it feels like the place is somewhere that's cared for, and it's a place where people feel comfortable walking. And so just to give you an idea of how change is possible, this is in Codman Square in Dorchester in Boston, outside a charter school where we've done a lot of work around walking safety. And so this is what it looked like before, no crosswalk, traffic kind of going willy-nilly. This is what it looked like afterwards, adding in a crosswalk, putting some paint in the middle of the roadway. You can see how we've bumped out the areas right around the crosswalk with paint and posts so that cars don't park right up to the crosswalk, and that enhances the visibility. So it does show that this is just an example of how change really is possible.
And I also want to point out that there are schools, there's a school with buildings on both sides of this roadway.
Yeah.
So that's why you see the crossing guard.
That's a good question. How do the trash receptacles work in the towns with the mandatory trash?
Pay-as-you-throw?
Yeah, because I know we've had to remove our trash receptacles because people are coming in and just dumping trash without using them. So I didn't know how that works in cities.
I'm not as familiar with that.
You have to have a cover over them. You have to have a trash barrel that is like this, and you can put trash around it, but there's a steel plate on the top with just this much space.
Oh, okay.
That's one way to do it.
So these posts going in the middle of the street, so those are kind of permanent, right in the middle of the street there, on either side of the park.
Yeah,
crosswalk.
they could be removable for if you need to plow the street, for example.
Yeah.
So they're plastic, so that if a car was to run into them, they would bend. But it does kind of clearly delineate that that's not a space where a car is supposed to be.
They're called flex posts, and the
Yeah.
city of Boston is using them over and over again, and they're experimenting with different installations so they can quickly and easily take them out during.
And another thing, while we're on the subject of flex posts, is that they're often used to physically separate bike lanes from traffic and make them protected. And the city of Boston is trying to do more and more of these. And I know, I believe there's been some discussion around some bike lanes on Brayton Ave potentially.
Yeah,
So-
Julie was telling.
Yeah, that's right.
The
So
other day.
to think about how flex posts can protect bike lanes, and then again, a bike lane is something that can also serve to narrow the travel lane. So bike lanes can also help slow traffic, calm traffic down.
How expensive is it to put in a flex post? Is that a fairly inexpensive thing, or does that involve a lot of infrastructure in the street?
Those are relatively inexpensive compared to physically extending a curb or building something.
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes the challenge is there's not enough in stock, and the city of Boston has faced delays with being able to get them so they can actually install them. But as far as cost, it's relatively low.
Yeah, we're talking about hundreds. We should get costs on that.
Yeah, numbers.
Because with some paint and those posts, you could really make a big difference, and, you know, fairly inexpensively.
Some communities do them like temporarily, like see what happens to traffic and
Yeah.
see what people
Well,
think about
Yeah,
it.
that's the
Those are
advantage.
things you have to be careful with though, depending on what
In what
street.
way?
Where, right now, what we do is we just started doing, I have it in 72 locations, is the pedestrian cones.
Yeah.
And those are $375.
Each?
And they get,
Yeah. So
Oh,
is it just an
they-
orange cone or?
no, no,
something?
no, 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 it's, it was on one of the pictures. It's the pedestrian cone that goes in the middle, it's got the person.
It's
Oh,
a stop
yeah.
for person.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Uh-huh, okay.
Those are $375. I have locations that I've put up 4 already, because you have SRPEDD bus. You know, when you're in a city, and the locations that you put, you have to think of the volume of vehicles that go through it. So putting up those little things could be more of a hazardous. The other thing is, you know, like you guys said, Boston is constantly replacing them. So that's something that cost effective, you know, it breaks my heart to put another one at that location when I've lost 3, because it's a lot of money. When
Do
I
they get
order
stolen
them,
or what happens?
no, it
You
gets
get-
damaged.
Oh, people run into
Buses
it.
run over, especially at nighttime. I mean, thanks to SRPEDD, who gave me a little over 10,000. And
That
I
was
was
HSIP.
able, and I'm still using them, I was able to order, just for the cones cost me about $9,000. And that was just a handful.
Here's a cheap one for you. Boston is considering just swapping parking and the bike lane, where there's already one, to create a protected bike
You
lane
can- yeah, you
with
can do that as
parked
well.
cars. And then it's the same cost of paint.
Yeah.
Does it, how effectively did it slow down the traffic? Where you
Oh,
put
that
this in?
works wonderful.
Yeah.
I just put one on Albert Street, but I know it's not gonna last there because that's a route, that's SRPEDD bus.
Bedford.
Bedford's got it. Highland Avenue, I have it in some of the schools. I have it on Broadway. I've got a list of all the locations. And the feedback is that it does work. It slows cars down, you know, for people for crossing. I have them mostly all at crosswalks.
So the
Yeah,
drawback
you
is the
definitely want that
expense.
crosswalk.
It works, but it's.
It is. Like right
yeah.
now, I still have quite a few because I was able, you know, to get money from them to help out a lot. And Julie also, it started out really with Julie. She was able to give me a couple of thousand a few years ago where I purchased quite a few. Because if you buy 12, you know,
You pay full price.
yeah, and then I gotta get it approved because it goes over a certain amount.
Yeah.
But they do work. They definitely do work.
Audit, do we want to start to think about going outside the school?
I think so. Are folks feeling ready to walk?
Sure.
And then
I
from there,
am
we'll
doing
walk.
the crosswalk. I have a crosswalk due because the person's out today, so.
Okay, well, we'll see you out there then, and we can chat more when we find you. So I think everyone has a clipboard, right? So yes, let's grab those, and feel free to take notes while we're walking out there. As we're going out there, we'll look at these intersections. You can make notes about what you think, what's missing. And while we're out there, that's an opportunity for all of us to be in conversation with each other, pointing things out. If there's something you want to make sure that we're taking down, talk to me, talk to Dorthea, and then we'll come back here and have a conversation as a group. So I'd say while we're out there, let's think big about the kinds of things we want to see. I mean, there might be constraints to getting certain things done, but if we feel like this location could use one of those in-street signs, or we could use a curb extension, or tighten up a curb radius over here. Let's put everything on the table, and then we can figure out how to focus it from there.
Regardless of money, how much it would cost again?
Yeah, let's not focus on the money for now.
Okay.
Like we want, because we definitely want,
free.
because we want to identify the
Okay.
problems and then talk about what the solutions could be.
Sure,
So we'll
okay.
have that conversation while we're out there, and then again once we come
Okay,
back.
all right.
Robin, I do want to look at the different doors. We talked about on the phone the other day, the different doors for dismissal. Do we want to do that and then pick a spot to all walk the route
Well,
together?
maybe let's talk about that as we're walking out, Robin. If there's a couple of
Okay.
spots that I know we
Let
can
me-
be
I
the phone.
just- I really do
And can we
wanna-
leave a bag here, or should we bring everything with?
I'm gonna go in there as soon as they clear out, okay?
No one likes it.
No.
That would give them all Fitbits, that kind of motivates you.
Okay, so the parents will start congregating over here, and the teachers will hand out.
Okay.
want all of the student
Yeah.
signage.
Grinnell Street.
Corner over here, yes.
I think some of it should go over there, at the very end. Where are the, we'll walk over there, and then
So
you
there's
direct
two
us.
dismissal points on this street, on Grinnell Street.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and there's another one in the back of the building, which is where the buses are. Those are the bus pickups in the back on Jackson Street. Yeah, so we don't have parents back there. So it's here, at the corner over here, except where the building door is. And then down below on Grinnell Street, there's another dismissal point, which is a big dismissal. We have K, 1, 2, and grade 4 all get dismissed from there.
All right, so I guess.
So should we meet back here at 3 o'clock?
Right. So my thing is,
So who's going to go to that corner too?
Yeah, there are two dismissal points on this street.
Okay.
Okay,
So I'll see you back here at 3 then.
let's see you back here.
And we'll look at.
Okay, so I'll go down this way. Where do you think it would be best for me to go?
So there's one over there, and then this is the other one.
There's two on the street.
Two on the street.
One at the top and one in the middle of the street.
Okay, so we should have some folks here, and then
Yeah, so there's really 3 spots.
3 spots. So who else wants to go down to see the other spot on that street?
I put it up, so.
We'll see it soon enough.
Take a ride, we're on the car park. They're right here along here, Cambridge. They park along here, down all the way down.
Do they offer after-school programs here?
Yes, the 21st century after school. Okay. This is one of them.
Maybe on the other side too. So K, 1, 2. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Off we go.
A little bit, they will, but.
these are not the new type you were talking about.
No, what'll happen is every August we do all the schools.
Really?
Every August we do the
And so
schools.
this is just a few months, this,
Well, this damage. No, this is
it's got much more congested down the other end of the street.
It's on the wrong side of the street.
So the majority get dropped off on this side?
Not even big.
Grades 3 to 5.
Okay.
3 to 5 and.
Orient my map the same direction.
At least with the biking.
That was at least the last one.
That's why there, I mean, nothing is definite, but that's why I think parts of it's gonna be shallow because of the parking.
Come
into our class.
I'm just I've been out of the office more than in. So
So how are folks feeling?
I think.
Well, a little set back by the challenge. Really?
Well,
a lot
yeah.
of cars out there.
Yeah. Well, so I just want to thank everyone once again. I think this has been, eye-opening for all of us, and we always learn something new every time we come down and do these kinds of exercises with folks like you in the community. So I think what we want to do now, and Dorthea will lead us through this next part of the discussion. If folks need to leave by 4, by all means, but folks can stick around for a little after. Robin, I don't know what kind of time. Okay, so thanks again to Robin for hosting us here. So I think Dorthea will walk us through, I think, kind of what are some of the main takeaways we saw out there, and what do we want to see as the main areas of improvement, and what some of those solutions could be. So I'll take notes, and then our next step will be to take what we've heard and write it up into
No, I'm okay, I'm gonna leave, I have to leave at 4.
We'll write it up into a draft report that we'll share with all of you for your comments. Then we'll turn that into a final report that can then help advance these kinds of improvements.
Okay, so we're gonna go through this quickly since Lori has to leave at 4. And Lori, I wanna say, we really appreciated your coming.
Oh, no problem.
It
Yes,
made
really.
a huge,
Thank you.
huge difference
Yeah,
to
thank
have
you.
someone who works for the city, is in the field.
Yeah, I know JR, the city engineer, was supposed to attend as well, but unfortunately he had a conflict. He would be the one regarding the sidewalks and a lot of the questions that you had financial-wise, he would be really, so I'm gonna have to, I'll fill him in
Okay.
on what.
Okay. So, actually, I often like to start with what we saw that was positive, because in all neighborhoods, there are positive things. And so let's come up with 3 things that you thought were very positive in terms of the walking environment.
Well, I thought the area cleared out pretty quickly
Yes?
in terms of, so I think it's efficient in that terms. And people being able to leave, so we didn't have traffic backed up for.
Good.
The sidewalks that were there, they appeared to be in good shape. I mean,
Yes.
there weren't any trees that were uprooting pavement or anything. They seemed to
Yes.
be in pretty good repair.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Most of the children were accompanied by adults, so you didn't have a lot of children walking by themselves and having to negotiate the streets by themselves.
Right, that's good, that's true. But I said 3, but if anyone has a 4th.
I wrote down helpful crossing signs, so I saw your, crosswalk here signs on Brunel. I was very excited.
The signs pointing to the crosswalks?
Yeah, pointing to the
Yeah.
crosswalks. I mean, it's on the street that's close to traffic.
Yeah.
During drop off, during pickup, but still helpful for drivers to get familiar with those signs in the community.
And we will do the whole all around the school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the crosswalks in the immediate vicinity of the school with the ladder, those were very well taken care of.
Yes, 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 and, they held up pretty well even for a year. The school you're supposed to be now. Okay, so, before we get to the nitty-gritty about, we need a crosswalk at a certain street, let's come up with 3 or 4 overarching, observations that you saw.
On the positive side, we could also say there were a number of wheelchair cuts too.
Yes, many
So that
curb
was good
cuts.
too. Curb cuts, that,
Yes.
I thought that was a positive too.
Right, and Lori said the city is pushing on that.
Yeah.
A major effort on that front. Okay,
I would say the crossing guards are a definite necessity at
Yes.
the school, and it's
Crossing-
great. Crossing guards are
Oh,
a definite necessity, and it's great that you have them at all corners because
Yes.
they're all utilized.
yes,
So the park and then have to go walk is great, but if you were to ever take those crossing guards away, it would definitely be a scarier situation than you
Right.
currently have.
yes. Crossing guards are under this police, are they?
Yes,
Are
the
there
police
police
department
officers as
oversees,
this one
yes.
was today? Okay, all right. Other observations?
The 2 major streets are really hazardous, Warren and Brayton.
Yes,
And there are no crosswalks marked. Very challenging to get across even Warren Street, which is just a 2-lane street, even more so Brayton Avenue, which is a divided highway.
right. Very,
And there are lots of children that live on the far side of both of those streets.
yes. I feel that I know the city has limited funds, but I feel a real priority is to create a safer crossing across Brayton. I know it's difficult. and-
Well, putting the expense aside, it also has to be very safe, because I know MassDOT does not like crosswalks in middle blocks.
Yes.
They feel that it becomes more of a safety issue than anything else. They always ask, and they're always saying first to push to do them at intersections.
Right.
That's where crosswalks.
Well-
With the light, is that what they mean by
With the
intersection?
traffic,
Intersection, you have the stop sign, you have, or you have traffic lights. To do it in mid-block, there's no way you're gonna be able to do just a crosswalk there.
But
You do a hop.
Lapham is already an intersection.
Right, but what I'm saying, on Brayton Avenue, to
do
do
it
a
mid-block.
crosswalk,
Yeah, but
smack in the-
at Lapham, that's where Lapham comes out.
She
into
means
Brighton.
like a signalized.
yeah.
Right,
I
so
don't
you're
mean-
talking about
With the
crossing.
light, with the light.
Right, but you're saying crossing Brayton Avenue, correct?
Yeah,
Well,
for children, yeah.
It
have
could
to
be
punch into the
mid-block,
median.
it could be
Right.
at an intersection. I mean, it's just, it doesn't matter whether it's mid-block or at an intersection.
You would
It has
have
be
to
safe.
make that into a signal intersection.
Yeah.
There's no, or just the pedestrian pushbacks.
The hawk.
But you'd have to do something
And
than just a crosswalk.
That
So-
might make sense, because the 2 red lights there are so far apart on that stretch, probably a mile apart, I don't know if it's as much as a mile.
It's not.
3/4 of a mile?
No.
Maybe half a mile.
It's only a
but-
mile from the end of the bike path to here.
But that
So,
still is, people won't walk a quarter of a mile away. Maybe you could include that in the complete streets application?
that would be something with JR.
Okay.
I can mention that to him.
Okay, well, we'll press on that one a little.
Thank you.
Audie, can I add just a few more things?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So trying to protect the crosswalks as much